You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Podbay, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Speaker, and more. This podcast is also available through our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and it is my honor, yes, honor to bring in my two co-hosts. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing very, very well. Still recovering from, such an eventful week in pro wrestling. And, in order to do that, we got to bring in the third member of this trio, and that's who?
Who?
It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Well, hey.
Hello, guys. I mean, man, we're going to be talking about it very shortly, the weekend that was, because it definitely made some waves. And also I'm sure we're actually going to be talking about an actual earthquake that did happen a little bit later on. But yeah, speaking of things on the Richter scale, to see the wrestling world at its highest peak of excitement, it feels like, for the first time in the longest time.
Yeah, it's been forever. I haven't been this excited for wrestling in a long time. I mean, just the general excitement with everything going on right now is off the charts. Like, I'm just excited. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Well, we are going to get into all of that very shortly, but you know what we got to do? We start off the show the same way as we always do. We got the road back to shows with Brendan.
All right. So, yeah, we are trying to start the way we normally do, but I mean, I don't even know what they're officially calling the color status for Mexico anymore, because they're making... So Mexico is still just doing whatever they need to get people spending money and out. So there it is. Mexico, I believe it's orange. I think it's officially still orange this week because it's still a 2-week process. But, they're doing whatever they need to at this point. So, and Miranda alluded to it. There was an earthquake in Mexico this week, and it happened. It hit Mexico City, and it happened during a wrestling show. So I'm going to have more information on that earthquake later in the show. But yes, wrestling was impacted by the big earthquake. It was, where did we go? A 7.0 earthquake, strong enough to be felt 200 miles away. At this point, it's hard for me to rate how that actually impacts Mexico, because Mexico City in particular is so kind of used to being hit by earthquakes of tremendous magnitudes that it impacts their infrastructure differently than it does in a lot of other cities that I can think of. So we'll see as the weeks progress how that impacts our wrestling. But so far, it happened in the middle of a show which carried on. So like I say, we'll bring that up in a little bit. In other news, then more CML is making news again, and more people leaving. Vangelis quit. I bring it up in this part because he's largely expected to show up with the Munoz family somewhere. So that's kind of our weekly Federations / Munoz kind of watch for news. So maybe the next time the Munoz family has a press conference, he'll drop in. Maybe he'll partner with Dralistico. Who knows? But there we are. And Indie Star, who's been working in AAA, so I don't know. I forgot to check with Dusty on this, but Commander had a little release that he has suffered some injuries, and he's going to be out for 5 months. I bring this up because we're huge fans of Commander on the show. He had a very viral moment. Hopefully he will be back speedy. He's young and healthy, so he should heal fine and easy. But
he's only like 22 or 22, I think, right now.
Wow.
I mean, he is a young guy. And it's so good. So good.
Yeah.
He's also in Chaos, Lucha. Yeah, he's impressive.
Yeah, he's part of that northern crew that worked out of Monterrey's and Chaos and Lucha Time a lot. He went extremely gifable at a Chaos event. So just really unfortunate timing because as we've been mentioning, despite COVID, wrestling is really coming back up into the forefront in Mexico, and a young guy like him should be able to get a lot of work at this time. So when he gets back, he'll probably make a big splash.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that corkscrew shooting star press he does. Like, if you haven't seen it, look it up. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you just Google Commander with a K, you will find a bunch of quick clips of him just being insane.
It's true.
Insane. You might have to add Luchador to it now because, like, I'm sure G.I. Joe has a Cobra Commander variant, but my computer knows me well enough. Anyway, that's my quick road back to shows. We're gonna have more news on the earthquake, and we'll give you updates on Commander as he hands them out. And we'll move into the indie roundup, which again, I didn't get to watch these, and yet, but Fight TV has up so some of the matches we were talking about. So that you have and the AAW show, which featured Aries versus Laredo Kid, and several other matches that, while not lucha centric, are look pretty good. Laredo Kid and Lee Moriarty at the Black Label Pro show, which, I mean, I've seen some highlights of that. That looks like it was a show stealer. And Black Label Pro always puts up good matches, so hopefully we get to, you go check that one out for sure. And then the Super Lucha 4-Way on the GCW show hit on Black Label Pro, or hit on Fight as well. So, those matches are all available, like I say, on Fight TV. We will have links up or I will have links up on my socials. Lucha Blog has placed up links over on his blog, and Fight TV, if you look for AAW, Black Label Pro, and GCW, you should easily find them in the recent editions, because those matches only happened last weekend during this giant weekend of wrestling news. Then, real quick, we had some IWRG as well. We had a match with, Toxin defending the IWRG Mexico title. This was the 5th defense. This would be against Jesse Ventura. That was a successful defense. And then that led into, that was the sub-main. I have not seen any previews of it, but Jesse Ventura and Toxin together, it's always going to be good. But we had what sounded like an insane match that I haven't had a chance to see yet, so I just stole the results directly from Lucha Blog, so I'm going to give him credit over there. But we had Gianni Valletta, Hijo del Espectro, Diva Salvaje, Carui, Hijo del Wagner Jr., Galeno del Mal, Estrella Divina, Veneno, Mafioso, Villano 5 Jr., Black Taurus, and this was for the IWRG Intercontinental Heavyweight in sort of a battle royal. This was a vacant title, so it was a battle royal at first, and then it turned into a ladder match, on the final four. So when we got down to the final four, they stopped it for a moment, set up the ladder, or set up the belts, and then everything went. Well, no, actually, this is Mexico. They just went. It was probably hanging the whole time, and then they just switched over to ladder match. Sounds like an insane match. I haven't had a chance to check it out. Gianni Valletta wound up coming out with the win, but I mean, with a field like that, there's gonna be some amazing moments, and I just wanted to give that one a quick shout out. That is my indie roundup for the week. I'm going a little light on this because, as Miranda alluded to, there was a lot of information in that we need to cover in the rest of the show. So as always, give me your feedback. If I didn't cover something you wanted me to cover, let me know. If I am covering too much IWRG, then, let me know on that too. And, we will adjust for you. But, thank you for tuning in for the Indie Roundup. I know it's been, received well by some people. I've gotten some feedback.
One thing to add to that is this Saturday, September 11th, Mass Republic is hosting Lucha Libre Mexicana at the Agua Caliente Casino in Cathedral City, California. This is a really stacked card which features talent like Pirata Morgan, Solar, Psychosis, Extreme Tiger, Rey Leon, El Snowflake from Nacho Libre, Baronesa, and someone that we had the privilege of speaking with earlier this week, and that is Viva Van. She is a wrestler based out of Southern California and has wrestled really all over the place, but a staple out here in the West Coast. Some people may be familiar with her work in AAA, which she got to do right before the pandemic hit last year. As well as wrestling in Tijuana and other Lucha Libre promotions and events like Expo Lucha. So we got to talk with her a little bit more about her experience in Lucha Libre, her background in training. And on top of that, I mean, she does a lot. She is her own entrepreneur with her makeup line, an advocate in bringing wrestling to Vietnam, and much, much more. So go ahead and listen to this clip from our interview with Viva Van.
Just quick tie-in for that because we didn't talk about it, but she also talks about upcoming Defy shows in Los Angeles, which is kind of a big deal, and the PCW Ultra shows, which are both a little further out and less of the focus. That show we're doing this weekend is going to be the big one. Miranda, you're going to be there, right?
Yes, I am.
And, but yeah, it's a great interview. Do go check it out. It should be up by the time this is hitting your ears.
I think I enjoyed working with Christy James. I would love to have another match with her because, the last time we wrestled was probably 2 years ago.
Wow.
And I feel like I've changed a lot in my style of wrestling, and I would love to go at it again with her. But it was always a good time with her. And, with Tessa, I was supposed to wrestle her, but I think she had gotten caught at the border for Expo Lucha, so she got taken out last minute. And Sumi Sakai, I learned so much from just that one match with her I had at PCW, and that match caught me off guard because I did not know that I was wrestling until I showed up that day.
Wow.
So you can only imagine the anxiety I felt. I had no idea until I got there, and I wasn't going to turn that opportunity down.
No. And I like to stress that again for people. That's why you bring your gear to every show, because you never know when they're going to say, can you wrestle this legend? Right? It could just happen.
That is very true. That is how I got onto AAA the very first time. Was I just brought my gear with me. I just went to enjoy the show, and Conan was like, "You have your gear on you?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "All right." He threw me into 2 segments, and then I ended up in the finale of the show with Escobar. He was at AAA at the time. Escobar. He was EOW at the time, and got to go against Lady Shani. So that is a story that I will probably tell my kids and my grandkids, because that caught me off guard too.
Busting out the tape of that at every chance you get. Did I tell you about the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a cool moment. I'm sure that is a very iconic moment. So you definitely should have that in your bag of tricks anytime somebody wants to talk about cool experiences in your life. That is.
Yeah, so I've been thrown like many curveballs in this business so far, and I just roll with it.
I mean, what other way is there a term to describe wrestling in a way? Just to say you just roll with it.
That is very true.
And that was a quick plug of our interview with Viva Van. The full interview is going to be available at luchacentral.com and all the podcast streaming platforms, as we normally have, like Spotify, iTunes, Podbay, Google Play, all of that. But yes, the Mass Republic hosted Lucha Libre Mexicana is going to be at Agua Caliente Casino this Saturday, September 11th, 7 p.m. is the bell time, and tickets are just, I believe, just $10, and then you also get a $5 credit to Agua Caliente Casino, so you don't even have to spend that much money to get there. You can actually get out of the casino with way more money than you came in with on that off chance. And also,
oh my gosh, they should market that. Live like a luchador. You go to the casino, you see the match, and then the casino throws money at you.
Yes. Exactly. That's that lucha life. So, make sure you check it out. If you're in the area, that's Lucha Libre Mexicana at Agua Caliente Casino this Saturday, September 11th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Brendan, for both the Road Back to shows and the Indie Roundup. Up next, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to Lucha-Masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at Lucha-Masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a big thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. So there's no way we're going to be able to get through this show without talking about, I don't know if we want to call it the elephant in the room, or, the one major thing that happened in pro wrestling. I mean, probably throughout this whole year, but definitely, as some people have indicated online, possibly the past 5 years, 10 years, more. You know what we're talking about. AEW All Out. The pay-per-view event of the season was this past Sunday, and man, was it something. So, Dusty, we're going to let you navigate this ship. Take us on this voyage of what we call All Out.
Yeah, I think it might have been the best pay-per-view, at least in the last 20 years, personally. I can't remember whether it was Spring Stampede. Was it 97 yeah, anyway, that was the best one before this one, in my opinion. And, but yeah, All Out. It was amazing. Easily the best wrestling show of the year so far. And that's not just my opinion. That's like a widely held opinion. The purchases bear that out. Apparently it's the best pay-per-view showing in a long time, about 10 years. And the most sold by a company that wasn't WWE since before WCW went out of business. So it's wild. And the result was in the action. We had you had the buy-in pre-show. We had Hardy Party. That's Matt Hardy with Private Party, and TH2 to form the Hardy Family Office versus Jurassic Express and Best Friends. This was a fun and quick match. Like I mentioned, it was on the pre-show, so it wasn't of too much substance. There wasn't much gravity to the match. It was just fun. It was there to get the crowd excited for some wrestling, to kind of whet their appetites for the main show, and they just did an absolutely fantastic job of that. Jack Evans looks better every time you see him in the ring. I've mentioned this a few times. He had kind of a rough run there in AEW for a little while, but literally every time we've seen him, he looks better and better and better since then. And I've enjoyed seeing that evolution. He was also involved in my favorite spot for the match. It's funny. It was just fun, like I've mentioned. But he got on Helico's shoulders, and then Jungle Boy got on Luchasaurus's shoulders, and they literally had a chicken fight in the middle of the ring. Like, just fun stuff. It was ridiculous.
Surprised me.
Yeah.
In a good way, that's a good match to do some kind of more fun, silly things.
Yeah, it was a chance to get to see, just the entertainment side of it that we don't often get to see from a lot of these guys. Matt Hardy is made for those kind of entertaining matches. Like, he is just so phenomenal at it. We got to see the Blade. He tried to interfere, but Jurassic Express, they had Marco stunt, and he got involved to neutralize the Blade. Incredible match. Jurassic Express and Best Friends picked up the win. Then we had, we're going to shuffle the order a little here, but we also had the Casino Battle Royale, and we had a women's Battle Royale for the Casino Battle Royal this time. Sometimes it's men's, this time it was the women. And to very little surprise, but to a tremendous reception, the Joker was revealed to be Ruby Soho, formerly known as Ruby Riott. And she ended up in the final 3 and then the final 2 with Thunder Rosa, and so good. The final 3 was Thunder Rosa, Ruby Soho, and Nyla Rose, and then Nyla Rose was eliminated. And they were the final 2 competitors, but it was so evenly matched that you really felt like it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many times I thought Rosa had it, but despite not being able to suplex Rosa off of the apron, Ruby was able to shoot a sharp knee at Rosa and pick up the win. And despite being a huge Thunder Rosa fan, all of us on the show are Thunder Rosa fan. I'm assuming that if you're listening, you're a Thunder Rosa fan. But I do think this was the right decision.
Yeah.
I think they need to hold off on Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker Part 2 to kind of draw that anticipation out. And this gives Rosa the ability to feud with Ruby and Britt Baker later, because of the way she lost. Gives it a lot of options, at least. Yeah. And it really draws that anticipation out for us. I truly, genuinely feel that Rosa should win the feud with Britt Baker. She needs to be the person to take the belt off of Britt Baker. She needs to be the champion. But it's not the right time for Britt Baker to drop the belt. Correct. She's been on fire as women's champion.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that Tony Khan kind of sees that too and has been keeping them apart. Full Gear is just too soon for that title change. But when it comes, it's going to make it that much sweeter.
A thing on that, since the scuttlebutt I'm hearing all over the internet on that isn't necessarily that they're excited about Ruby Rose challenging for the title, is they want to see Ruby Rose and Thunder Rosa mix it up. So
I was gonna say the crowd between Ruby. I was gonna jump.
Ruby
I was
Soho.
gonna say Ruby Soho. You were gonna say. I was gonna say Riot.
Yeah.
The initial reaction when they were the final 2 between Ruby Soho and Thunder Rosa, it was audible chants back and forth. They both had a really great intensity in the ring. Like, that is a program that I think would be great. And it would be your 2, because at this point they're 2 of the top, baby faces in the women's division. But at the same time, I think what AEW can do and what they've done in other instances is you can have 2, faces face each other and have a very great match. And I think that is one where you could have the crowd, hyped for. So as much as I agree with Full Gear being too soon for any title change, with Britt Baker, I would have loved to see them move forward with a Thunder Rosa, Ruby Soho feud for Full Gear. Like that.
That's what I want to see.
That's where the excitement and energy seems to be. So as long as the boss listens to like the entire wrestling world, we should be in for a treat for that.
Just even that crowd, I think that, again, evenly matched, even amount of support. They both have very unique looks, but also like this great intensity in the ring. It was a great final 2. Really good decision on these final 2, me personally.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And like you said, to me, this is the more interesting feud for the moment. And so we'll see what they do. Tony Khan has been very receptive to what fans want and listening to the receptions of fans. So hopefully, we'll get to see some of that. We also had Andrade show up at All Out. His match was pushed back due to travel issues with Pac. Andrade and Chavo, they were on camera. They denied having anything to do with Pac's travel issues, but said that Andrade was ready for Pac on Rampage. And that kind of leads us into some rumors and story going on. Brendan, I think you've got a little more than I do.
So, I mean, and we talked off air about my feelings on this, like, Andrade not being on this pay-per-view, which it moved the needle as far as wrestling goes. It seems like that might be a sore point for that. And that's the rumors that Andrade's not happy that his match got bumped. Like, maybe it really is just travel problems and it was totally unavoidable, but scuttlebutt is he's not happy. And, the kind of proof that people are offering is a single tweet. So, take that as your mileage may vary or grain of salt or whatever you want to call it, where somebody tagged Charlotte and said, "Hey, why did you let your boy get moved from the pay-per-view to a Friday night heat?" Kind of making reference to WWE programming and how not successful some of it was. And Andrade himself liked that tweet. So therein is all of your supporting evidence. I think we're probably going to talk about in a moment here about exactly how we feel about Andrade not being on there, but it sounds like he might echo my sentiments on it because I have said that. So, but yeah, that's the rumor.
Yeah, and it was also reported in the Wrestling Observer by Dave Meltzer that he didn't expand on the reason, but that the reason Pac was held off the match was held off the card and Pac was held back from the match wasn't actually due to travel issues. It was due to the same reason that Sasha Banks missed SummerSlam. Again, he didn't, kind of elaborate on that. And there's been a lot of rumors. I won't address the rumors here, but you can kind of read into them online, especially if you Google around. So hopefully we get to see Pac soon. It's like Brendan said, it wouldn't have moved the needle for Andrade to have had the match. Like, people weren't going to buy the pay-per-view just to see Andrade. But to have been included because this is going to be, this is one of the all-time great pay-per-views. Yeah. It's
We're going to be talking about this pay-per-view for decades.
Forever.
Yeah.
And it's going to be marketed. We're going to see this on at least DVD. I don't know why AEW hasn't made the jump to Blu-ray yet, but we're going to see it for sale. This is going to be the kind of thing people own and watch over and over. Like this.
Yeah.
And I think it will be one of those things that kind of rewards repeat viewing because there was so much going on. It was hard to focus on anything. And I really feel that it, was, like I say, detrimental to him and to his momentum that he wasn't on this card, because I'm afraid so many people will see he wasn't on there and it was moved to TV and they'll be like, well, it wasn't good enough. But in what world would Andrade versus Pac not be good enough to be on the pay-per-view? Like, I don't know. Very disappointing choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least that's also the crazy thing is that with this match moved the women's Casino Battle Royale into the main show. And I do think that having that as part of the main show made such a difference as far as, the feel of the show itself. So like there was a domino effect that ultimately, people benefited from, but Andrade ended up suffering.
I'm not, this is not negative on anybody else. I'm just going to throw this out there because there is a match that was in a spot where the Andrade match could have worked, would have had the same effect on the card, and it would have been more future forward as opposed to nostalgia, and that would have been the Big Show match or Paul White match.
Yes, I absolutely agree. That has no place on this. Like, QT Marshall just gets a bunch of bones thrown at him just because, he's friends with the group, but the feud is not interesting, and I have no idea why that was on the main show.
Especially
not
sandwiched between two main events. Like,
exactly.
I understand needing a cool down after after the.
I was going to say, if there was a popcorn match, that was.
Yeah. But again, it's because we know it wasn't going to move the bar. Andrade Pac would have been a good one for there because you could have that little bit of cool down, but still have two of your.
And they could have put somebody else in that match.
Yeah.
And they could have still had that one off. They've done it before where they filled people in at the last minute. They could have obviously done that for this match.
And there's so many people on the AEW roster. It's like there's like dream matches for Andrade all over the place there. So
yeah, it was just, I don't know. And it's not just this feud and not just their placement on All Out. That was just the capstone on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of sick of QT Marshall lately. Like, I don't know that I need to see him on TV. Like,
I wasn't
Dark
trying to go down this
Elevation is okay.
Well,
but
you don't
yeah.
have to be nice about it. You know, that's our job. We don't be nice about it. We don't have to. What was QT Marshall going to do? Like, get upset that this, podcaster at luchacentral.com doesn't like his feud? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, me and half the internet doesn't like this feud. And that's generous to say half the internet.
Yeah.
It's more in that I know that when we get going, we could just get going, and it's really not relevant to the show to talk about how much we don't like QT. So
yes.
Sorry,
that's
QT,
very
I don't like your feud right now.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
But
sorry if you're offended, but not sorry. Andrade should have had your spot. You know it.
Damn, Dusty just put it out there.
Just get real.
Yes, it's not real. All right, Dusty.
Yeah, well, we've danced around it now, and we're almost here. The women's battle royale was actually kind of the cooler match after this match, but we had the Lucha Bros versus the Young Bucks inside the cage. So good. This whole segment's literally just going to be us talking about how badass and amazing the Lucha Bros are. But it was so good. Like, this match literally stole the show. It was the best match on the best card in years. And I am so excited for the Lucha Bros because of that. If, like I mentioned last week, if there was ever a time for the Bucks to drop these straps, it was now. Mm-hmm. And having the championships go to such a cool, solid tag team like the Lucha Bros was just amazing. Penta and Phoenix are out there killing it on a regular basis all over the world. And the drama and the excitement in the match was incredible, but it also showed how, like, well-traveled and well-rounded and just how excellent and how good at wrestling both the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks were. Like, it was just incredible. And also, now, the Lucha Bros have as many belts as Kenny Omega does, and they're from the same companies, and their trademark, I mean, like, I'm not saying they're the belt collectors or anything, but I would personally say I prefer them, both together and individually, to Kenny Omega by far. And it just puts them in that same company with Kenny Omega. Like, that's a big deal, and they have a trademark of having high quality matches everywhere they go, and it's really put them in the upper echelon of wrestling, not just tag teams, not just lucha, but these guys are like at the top of the game worldwide in wrestling, and I am 100% here for it. They had an amazing entrance. They had their theme song played live with Mikey Ruckus and rapper Gangsta L accompanying them to the ring. They had these amazing feathered Aztec or Mayan style headdresses. They added so much. Rey Mysterio wore one of those type of headdresses, and it's one of the most iconic Rey Mysterio moments ever. So I'm assuming this is going to be, I mean, it instantly stands out in my mind for the Lucha Bros. I think it will forever be seen as one of their most iconic entrances. They had
Fight Studios. We need those for toys. We need that entrance gear for toys.
Yes, we need the entrance gear. We need the gear they wore to the show was incredible. They had these red, white, and green matching varsity jackets that said Lucha Bros. Penta had some, I mean, his gear was really amazing. It was a traditional Penta gear, but it was red, white, and green like the Mexican flag. So cool. The match occurred 5 years and 1 day after the first match ever between Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks and PWG. And it's been about 2 years since their matchup at Double or Nothing. And so this was the first time they had faced off just tag team versus tag team since then. An amazing match. Like I said, best match on the show. Even though for the most part the tag team rules just flew out the window immediately and it was pretty much tandem wrestling the entire time. Like, it just added to the chaos and insanity. Go ahead, Brendan.
That leads to my things. But I mean, you have to expect that. It's a cage.
Yeah.
Right? You have to expect that they weren't gonna have a referee inside who's gonna force them to use the tag ropes and then, take the chair away from them or whatever else. But that is my one complaint about this match. because we're all going to be pretty positive about it, so I have to counter a little bit here. I thought that it started too hot and too high, and then that made it so that you had to go to these absurd lengths with the really ridiculous moves happening that led to false finishes.
So many false finishes.
Off of moves that like somebody should have legit been dead from.
Yes,
so,
yes. But in any ways, like, it did make sense, as you mentioned, in the context of the steel cage. If anything, that's the only reason why it made sense. I know for some people, looking at this as a tag match, like, this is not your traditional tag match. So I think tag team purists are looking at this as a spot fest, which, it was. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
But it's also thinking about the entertainment value, and also making tag team wrestling interesting. And especially if you look again at the aspects of Lucha Libre, like the Young Bucks ripping up the masks of the Lucha Bros, and the intensity of, the violence in there. Like, those are all very pure Lucha elements. And so, I think for a lot of fans, that too was something that they got out of this match as well. So,
absolutely.
All of it at the end of the day depends on what kind of wrestling you like. For people who are looking at this from a tag team purist perspective, they were just saying just a lot of spots, which it was. But I think the consensus
but it was awesome.
is that
it was
still, it was an awesome spot. It was really entertaining. And you got it. It's hard. How could you not be invested in it? I guess is my.
Yeah. No. And like, just to be absolutely clear to everybody out there, I still really enjoyed this match, but I felt like it had reached such a peak and a pinnacle way earlier than the absurd false finishes point that I just couldn't get more hype by that point, and I didn't feel it necessarily needed all of that over the top. They could have saved some of that, or maybe, like I said, started a little less hot and then worked their way up to that. That's just a very small nitpick over, again, what was a fantastic overall match.
It was literally like they just got in a Corvette and floored it. Like, it was that. It was that fast.
Very fast and furious. That's absolutely, a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah. Penta bled in the match. Phoenix bled in the match. It's been a while since we've seen Penta bleed like that. Maybe since Lucha Underground. It was an intense match. Like Miranda said, it was just as spot-filled as you can imagine. It was awesome, though. Everything was insane. They got the win and with the fear factor and just over 22 minutes and 2 seconds, and the entire match flew by. Like, it just felt like it was just a minute. It was so good. The next night, Dynamite, they showed up on Dynamite that Wednesday, for a short video package. I would imagine they were just exhausted from the weekend, but they said that their blood, their sweat, and their tears had got them there. And literally, we saw that blood on Penta's belt. Such a cool spot. Penta he cut a promo in Spanish. Alex translated, of course. I hope they let him speak more Spanish. His charisma and the way that Penta speaks adds so much to his character. Like, I just love to hear Penta talk. But at the same time, Alex Abrahantes was an amazing addition to the Lucha Bros. The Penta Says thing is super over. People love Alex. And just such a perfect team. And they have done so much and been so exciting, and all this time I'd been so excited for the Lucha Bros to win, but I felt like maybe not. And when we saw that incredible showing from Proud and Powerful against FTR last week, I thought, well, maybe they're going to wait and put the straps on Proud and Powerful. Maybe they'll wait for the Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe. But I am so glad it went to the Lucha Bros. That was the right decision. It was the right match. For as amazing as Proud and Powerful are, they wouldn't have had the same match or the same impact on the show that the Lucha Bros had. I really think that this is, we've mentioned it before, wrestling, even as a kid during the Attitude Era, it never felt this exciting to me. Like, I am more excited about wrestling than I've ever been in my life. And a huge part of that is the Lucha Bros as tag team champions, AEW and AAA. So much going on. They are so good. They're getting recognized all around the world. And I think they can show Kenny Omega how the belt collecting's done by the end of this.
So, I mean, this match was kind of the cement for this, even though it's happening out of order. But yeah, it really feels like AEW is rounding a corner where we're gonna see a new era in wrestling. We'd all been looking towards WWE to lead us into a new era. Some people got excited when AEW was first announced and thought that was gonna happen, but anybody could tell you, a promotion or a business or anything needs a little bit of time to find their niche and hit that, to use a reference that most wrestling fans listening to this will recognize. ECW was Eastern Championship Wrestling before they were Extreme Championship Wrestling, and they had to find that footing before they changed the wrestling world, and AEW is the same way, and I felt this was the beginning of that. Like, we were at the beginning of some. And to give the little spoiler, I know you're going to cover it, but we were talking about it right now. For those of you that wanted to see a proud and powerful kind of rise, like we all do on this show, Wednesday they said they were looking straight at the Lucha Bros and wanted that championship.
Yeah,
so
that they were ready to move up in the rankings and be serious and like that. I am so excited for that match. Like, oh. We were supposed to get it with the street fight, and it didn't play out. And so hopefully we get it now. I cannot wait. So good. So much going on with the Lucha Bros and AEW. Like Brendan said, it feels like people have compared it to WCW, and I understand the comparison. But at the same time, it feels like they've learned from all their mistakes. And the things people are saying, they're like, WCW, well, they've gotten attention on some of the smaller guys. They've gotten attention on international wrestlers. They bring you fresh stuff that you're not used to, not the same old American wrestling. And all these things that WCW did that people really liked and applauded at the time, and were the things that kept it buoyant when the NWO got bloated and when all that went on and the finger poke of doom and everything. It was the cruiserweights. It was these other guys that were keeping people invested on Nitro and Thunder. And so, but that's what we want. We want to see, WWE's made an effort lately, allegedly no more guys under 6 foot tall, all of this stuff. They're more about the look than the talent. But I'm a talent person. I love the work rate, and a lot of people are. And you see people that were never wrestling fans getting into AEW, or people that hadn't watched in years because of whatever. Some people have problems with the Saudi Arabia thing. Some people just didn't enjoy WWE. There's been people that I went to high school with, that I watched wrestling with, that hadn't said anything about wrestling until this week. They saw All Out somewhere, and they want to talk about it. And it's just so cool that everybody's so excited. And it does feel like we're on the cusp of the next new, really exciting, important next step in wrestling. I don't know what it is, but it feels like, this feels like the 90s did, but even better. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I am so excited, and I'm here for it. Wrestling is more, I don't know that it's better than ever necessarily, but it's more accessible than ever. We have Lucha and MLW, we have Lucha and Impact, we have Lucha and Ring of Honor, we have Lucha and AEW. Like, it has never been easier to be a Lucha fan. You got YouTube to check out AAA and CMLL. Yeah, it's just so cool, and we're living in the future.
We are.
Let's be honest about the AAA and YouTube thing isn't working out as well.
Well, okay, yes. So there are some limitations there, but you are right as far as I think this event caused a lot of excitement for current fans, maybe for fans who haven't been as active in the past 5, 10 years. There are still a lot of comparisons to WCW, and I think some of those they've leaned into and some they've made very clear that they're trying to steer away from. I think at the end of the day, it's always just seeing how history unfolds and how they learn from history to see where they fall in, the grand scheme of things, because I do think that having the focus they do in tag team wrestling and the move to have the Lucha Bros as your tag champions is absolutely the right move. Some things that we talked about in the women's division would be great steps to take. But ultimately there, does seem to be a few missteps, like with the whole Andrade situation.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is a balancing act for them. They're not always going to get everything perfect. But I do think that they set out what they meant to do, is get people excited. The big thing for me next is, now all of these big people have been announced. You have CM Punk and, Bryan Danielson and Ruby Soho and Adam Cole, all of the big guns are out now. So what happens when the dust settles? And I think that too is something that, will be very interesting to see what happens on all these other elements. What happens when the dust settles now in the tag division? Hopefully they keep the momentum going and building up some great competitors for the Lucha Bros. Maybe we finally get Pac versus, Andrade, but, even what happens with the dust settles there and some other, groups and things like that. So that's kind of where my mind goes to in this, post all out world is, letting the dust settle to, okay, what's next?
So, I mean, to your point, the tag team division looks good. They've already got a large and robust, we've talked about this they've got such a robust tag team division. We're looking towards the trios title that hasn't happened yet, because they've got so many units that work together that they could do that. So, having a legitimate team out there that is not part of the vlogosphere and needs to do most of their product on TV is exciting. That means that we'll see more of that on TV instead of seeing development happening on everybody's vlogs. I'm excited about that. I'm not worried about that. The more interesting one is the one that you alluded to in the middle there. The women's division now has enough high-end talent that they can be doing women's matches more on TV every week. So that's, to me, gonna be the test, right? Are we gonna see the women's division finally stepping up as the fans have been requesting for, because they've got the talent now. They don't have the excuse of the talent's not ready yet, which isn't much of an excuse when you look at the people that they're featuring over on Dark all the time that could step up. They just don't have anybody to help them look like as big a star as they are. They've got that now. So where are we going to go with this?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not just Ruby Soho and Thunder Rosa anymore.
Correct.
Like, you can bring Diamante back into the bigger picture. You can to tie it to our lucha stuff. You can bring any one of the other dozen of ladies they've got working over on Dark that every week that can step up at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and they, like even within their own division, Penelope Ford has been so good lately. Like she has just outshined herself week by week. The women's division was their weakest point. I've been hoping for a long time they would kind of expand that. They need to have more than one women's match a show. I don't know if there should be like a women's tag team title. It felt like we were going that way when Ivelisse and Diamante won the tag team tournament, but they never went with tag team titles. Maybe a mid-card title. There just needs to be something else for the women to do, because now they've got the depth of roster to do it. And there's no reason that people like Sheeta should be on Dark or Dark Elevation anymore. She should be on the main show. There's a lot going on. And always something going on with AEW, including Dark Elevation, Dynamite, and Rampage each week. Check in at luchacentral.com every day for the results on those. They've got results, reviews, sometimes they've got clips, all kinds of stuff up to the minute, and it's at luchacentral.com.
Another big week for ROH, including something that, Brendan, you actually predicted the future. So I'm just going to let you take that away.
So what I said was that if it happened, I was going to throw a big party. So now I guess I have to throw a big party, because So we're just going to go right with the headline on this since that was our lead in. Roxy and Miranda Alizé are in the women's tournament finals. Like that is our women's tournament final match, is these two young up and comers, both who we've been featuring on this show because of their extensive lucha backgrounds. So we're getting, as the listeners of this show and hopefully fans of this kind of content, we're getting a kind of a dream match out of the field that we were given. And, there it is. Like, they're going to hang their hat on one of these two women, and the other one's probably going to be one of the feature players. They both got announcements this week as having extended contracts that are much more robust with ROH. So you'll still see them at indie shows because ROH is very permissive of that, but they have made it very clear that they want these two as their bread and butter in the women's division, and I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. You got two very good matches out of it. It wasn't like last week's matches where you had one match that you were kind of like, yeah, maybe. No, you got two really solid, very competitive matches. It was Styles was the story in both of them again, and kind of the underdog coming out on top a little bit. So I'm just fantastic. That was on their TV. That's available for free through Saturday. They'll put up a new episode on Saturday, and then you'll have to be a subscriber. I will still shill this. It is worth the $10 to be an Honor Club member to Definitely. Be able to, I mean, the TV show is their weakest point, and I'm using air quotes around that because their TV matches aren't necessarily as strong as their pay-per-view and house show matches. So if you're starting with the bar of the TV show matches are drawing you in, you're only going to get better content out of the Honor Club membership. So there's your plug right there. And we have results. We had results on Lucha Central for this, and we will definitely have results for the pay-per-view that's coming up this weekend. So just a quick reminder, there is a pay-per-view this weekend, Death Before Dishonor. There will be a few things going on there. We're going to have LFI challenging for the 6-man titles. That's going to not feature Roosh. It's going to have Bestia del Ring in there with Dragon Lee and Kenny King. But I mean, that'll be an interesting one to see what the future looks like, because if they find a way to incorporate Roosh or the thought of Roosh into this match, that means that they are still banking on him being a major player for them going forward. And if they don't, then we might get an indicator that maybe the Munoz family is going to start looking towards doing other things in the near future. So that'll be interesting as well. They did have on TV, they had LFI versus Shane Taylor Promotions in a 4-on-4 match, kind of trying to build hype around this match. The story on this one, unfortunately, was this was filmed before Roosh was hurt, and it really did an amazing job of getting me excited to see it. And then I had that letdown of realizing that what I'm gonna get isn't nearly as good as what is in my head now, because Roosh isn't gonna be able to wrestle. So, but that's ROH for this week. It's gonna be all about the pay-per-view this weekend. So keep an eye on Lucha Central for results, and then we will definitely be talking about ROH a lot next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Up next, we have this week in NXT, and 2 matches to keep an eye out on. We had Santos Escobar facing Carmelo Hayes. He was the winner of the 2021 breakout tournament. This came from last week's confrontation that Carmelo had with Legado del Fantasma when they were asking him about which championship he was going to possibly seek. Santos pretty much has staked his claim in the North North American Championship. So this was definitely a match that I think caught some people by surprise as far as how good it was. And this is also, I think, one of the first times we're seeing some of that newer talent face a much more established star on the roster. So Carmelo Hayes, though, was able to hang with Santos. At first, Santos was really taking the lead, but then Carmelo Hayes was able to come through fairly quickly, breaking through with some great sequence steps with Santos and some great maneuvering. And that just got Santos agitated. And eventually that led to him being able to, I think it was kicking him off of the side of the ring onto the announce table. And also some work outside of the ring where he ended up putting on some kind of crab to Carmelo on the steel steps. But then Carmelo had a very impressive, what I would call it, like a backwards leg drop off the second rope onto Santos. Towards the middle of the match, Santos tried to put on the Phantom Driver, but Carmelo ended up reversing that with a double knee face breaker. However, as it always does, the numbers game always favors Legado del Fantasma, but this time it was with their newest member, Elektra Lopez. Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde distracted the referee. Carmelo Hayes was on the outside, and Elektra Lopez hit a body slam on Carmelo Hayes, which looked very clean from her, and he sold it very well. That distraction allowed Santos to end up hitting the Phantom Driver for the win. And so a great showing by Carmelo Hayes. I would love to see this match again. And also showing how the numbers game always wins in Legado's favor, now showcasing the strength in Elektra Lopez. She will literally carry her weight in this team. So that is fairly impressive. After that, we did also have a pre-taped interview with Hit Row, just kind of continuing on this feud with Legado del Fantasma. They essentially said that they were going to make Legado pay for what they did last week. So we are moving forward with this feud, even though we had this sidestep with Carmelo Hayes. But I think this was one of the better ways of showcasing that newer talent on the roster and how they could have great matches. And it gives, some hope that NXT will continue in a good direction. Also, we had the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships on the line. We haven't seen them in a while. Io Shirai and Zoe Stark faced Kaden Carter and Casey Catanzaro. And always, the team of Kaden and Casey, continue just to get better every time. But this time for me was Kaden Carter that I thought was, the MVP of this match. But the tag team work between Kaden and Casey it's really, really strong and really, really good. And really the story with this match at the beginning was that Io Shirai refused to tag in Zoe Stark. And we've seen this dynamic, this tension between Io and Zoe over the past few weeks, really since they've won the Women's Tag Team Championships. Eventually Zoe Stark was able to come in only after tagging herself in. But with the speed and maneuvering of Kaden and Casey, I think it was a challenge for both of them to keep up. And eventually they had to kind of break down and start working together because there was no way they could really go past the unity that Kaden and Casey showed. And again, both of them are very talented. Of course, Casey was much more of that gymnastics background, but I think Kaden as well displayed some great agility in this match. But Io had some beautiful missile drop kicks. The first one she did in this match had some great distance, one of the cleanest, most precise that I've seen in quite some time. But eventually, Io and Zoe were able to get onto the same page and actually tagging each other in and out. And they ended up winning the match. Io Shirai landed her moonsault for the pin. However, afterwards, they were attacked by JC Jane and Gigi Dolan, who are now being managed by Mandy Rose. So we already seem to have kind of the next competitors in line for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships. But I foresee eventually Kaden and Casey, getting another opportunity, if not winning, as they'd be a great babyface team. And, I think that they would, be able to do those titles justice. But Io and Zoe themselves, though, are such a deadly combination because you have Io Shirai with both that strong style and lucha background. Zoe herself with much more, of, I think, the strength in that team, but also some really great maneuvers on her side. And then from there, though, we do have a announced matchup for next week. We are getting Frankie Monet versus Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship. Unfortunately, we didn't get much of a promo between the two. A lot of that was just a vignette filmed with Frankie and, her group, with Robert Stone. So I wish we would have had more of a face-to-face confrontation between Frankie and Raquel.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about this match. If this is going to be the one and only, I would have, again, as I've mentioned, I'd love to see this. This could absolutely be on a takeover. So maybe we get a false finish, or maybe we don't get a clear winner and we move to a second match between the two. But it is official. And, as NXT has stated themselves, that next week is is something new coming with NXT. Yeah. So the page is turning with NXT. A new chapter is starting. And at this point, seemingly being headlined by Frankie Monet and Raquel Gonzalez. I'm not sure what else will be announced for next week, but I do think it's great to have this match as part of the new chapter of NXT.
So I want to clarify on this. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but this coming week is the first non-pre-taped episode, right? My understanding was...
That is what I understand as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Or at least
that's the way I understand.
Yeah, they pre-taped for a short amount of time, and now they're going back to live, so...
To live, yeah.
Yeah,
with the new branding and all of that is what we are expecting. Which, again, very cool that we're getting that women's match as the only lead-in for that, because that means they're hanging their hat on people wanting to see that, which I think is great.
Yeah. So,
I did have a thought while you were talking about this. We have with the Legado de Fantasma sort of thing. We have what potentially could be a tale of two stories. The Santos Escobar was experienced a renewed popularity over the internet after that match, and they said they want to see more of him. They want to see a lot more of that after this match this last week. So, like we were talking about in AEW, do the powers that be listen and go with that, or do they do their own thing? And that'll be another thing that we can maybe compare. I know they're not on the same night anymore, but it's still interesting to see. NXT is still more relatable to AEW than anything that on Raw or SmackDown. So it's interesting to see how they handle each other and handle their lucha talent in particular.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because, NXT doesn't seem to get the same kind of internet buzz as, they used to, both on a weekly basis and even in takeovers. I mean, this past takeover was kind of there's a lot of apathy over it. So I think that being able to produce some great matches like this, and again, Carmelo Hayes is part of this kind of newer group, that's come into NXT. And so I think that being able to showcase these newer talents and say why they're putting the focus on these young guys, this new blood, with matches like this, I think will kind of shut fans up a little bit, make them eat their words, on saying, we believe in them and that's why, because they could go in and have a really I really did like that Carmelo, Santos match. It was a really,
You're not alone.
Match. Yeah.
A lot of people really liked it. I think they exceeded expectations on that.
I think that's also, I think that was a thing, is that you didn't really know going into it what to expect. And Carmelo went at the same type of pace and even agility that Santos displayed, which I don't think a lot of people expected. But yes, the results for NXT are available at luchacentral.com. So if you missed anything, well, of course, listen to the show, but also go to luchacentral.com to catch up. Up next, Dusty, you have a little bit of AAA news for us.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on with AAA, but we did have some announcements for Heroes Immortales, the Antonio Pena Memorial Show. It's on October the 9th this year. 2 matches have been announced, and what's going to be exciting news for all of us. The first match that was announced was Laredo Kid and Io del Vikingo challenging Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. for the AAA Tag Team Championship.
Dang.
Fire!
Oh,
That's
so
Fire!
gonna be so good.
Amazing. And then in less exciting news for Brendan, it was announced that Psycho Circus would be fighting La Empresa in a cage match.
Oh,
But yeah, a couple of fun matches at least for that tag team match is going to be insane. Like, I cannot wait for that, especially after seeing this most recent one at All Out. Like, oh, so good. I think it's going to be the show stealer. There's a reason they announced it, I feel, because of All Out. Like, it adds a lot of cachet to have the Lucha Bros in your tag team.
Who are just on fire right now. Absolutely.
Yeah, ride that wave of their success.
In fairness, as much as I don't like Psycho Clown, I think that is the perfect match to have for La Empresa.
I was going to say, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Other than the cage match and, Sam Adonis possibly ruining that pretty face of his.
Yeah. No, I mean, so the Psycho Circus are kind of standard bearers for AAA. They've been consistent, as heels and baby faces for the last decade and a half or so. I don't have that right in front of me. They are currently the guys, is when you think of like AAA guys, that's, you're thinking of Psycho Clown. Mm-hmm. And La Empresa's doing kind of this big invasion angle. So like it's big event booking. That's going to get people in. You're going to get people like me that are going to watch just to see if Psycho Clown's going to get messed up and get his mask taken off, and stuff like that. And you're going to get AAA fans that are going to want to see Sam Adonis get his face messed up. So
yeah, Psycho Circus are really like the home team for AAA in a big way.
Yep.
And so it is a nice fit. I think it's going to be a fun match. And, if everybody, we've mentioned this on other things, everybody likes the good guys versus the bad guys. That's the essential story in wrestling, and AAA is going to deliver, I feel, with this match. Very exciting. As more matches are announced, we'll have them on the show. We'll, of course, cover the show itself. Again, Heroes Immortales happens October the 9th, and stay tuned to luchacentral.com for all the news and updates, and to our podcast for all the news and updates, and we'll bring them to you as they come.
Well, up next, it's our signature segment. You know it. You love it. It's This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
Yeah, that's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day. I know I'm always mentioning luchacentral.com, but it's because we've got new stuff literally every single day. Literally every day there's new stuff. And so you need to check it out. And on there, one of the new things every day is This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera. And there's information, there's birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos. A lot of This Day in Lucha Libre has a video to accompany it. There's even more incredible stuff on there, and it's all about Lucha Libre, and that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week we chose September the 7th, 2010, when Mascara Dorada, now more recognizably known in the WWE as Grand Metalik, one half of the Lucha House Party, he won the CMLL World Welterweight Championship for the first time in his career after beating Negro Casas on a Tuesday night show at Arena Mexico in Mexico City.
I've missed that was a Tuesday night show.
Yeah,
Crazy.
isn't that wild? And yeah, that's why I had to throw that in.
for listeners, that's the equivalent of a title changing hands on on Sunday Night Heat, like
Yeah.
back in the 90s, like that. It could happen, but nobody really expected
Yes.
it.
Yeah, it was a big surprise at the time, and he was already well decorated. This would be the first of his 4 total runs with the welterweight belt, but this match, when he won, it made Mascara Dorada the first, and as far as I know, the only luchador to ever be a concurrent quadruple champion in CMLL. He held the Mexican National Trios Championship, the CMLL World Trios Championship, the CMLL World Super Lightweight Championship, and then he added the welterweight. And another interesting fact about him is that the Mascara Dorada character was the first instance of a regular-sized luchador ever being given a character based on a mini Estrella.
Yeah.
His character was based on the wildly popular CMLL mini Estrella, Mr. Mascarita Dorada. He was super popular. He later became El Torito with the Matadors in WWE. A lot of people might be more familiar with him there. He's one of the best little guys to ever work lucha. He is incredible. And at this point, like he had been Mascara Dorada for a couple of years at this point, but before that, when he was local, a smaller guy, smaller time at least, he had been called Meta League and was a local welterweight champion. And then in 2008, he got the name. This match was in 2010. He was only 22 years old when he had this match. Like, it just blows my mind. He was already wrestling like a veteran. And for those of us that kind of watched CMLL and New Japan both at the time, this was a match where you're like, I've got to see this. Because it was rumored that the people from New Japan were there, and that's why they had put the title, was to kind of show him off to New Japan. And that's where he got his bookings after that. And it's hard to understate just how exciting and fresh and flat out impressive Mascara Dorada felt at the time. He really felt like he was going to be one of the big future superstars of Lucha Libre at this point. Like, the momentum and the popularity was just off the charts. And it was also the beginning of him moving away from being more of a trios wrestler to becoming strictly a single star for CMLL. And he was like their standout talent at the time when Mystico had gone to America to wrestle as the original Sankara Azul. Whole thing. Anyway, Brendan, what did you think of this match?
Well, I mean, it should be no surprise that I was super excited for this one, because I have gone on record as saying I am a Mascara Dorada / Grand Metal League guy. Like, his career, his trajectory has been amazing to me. I think 1,000% that he would be a much bigger name if he hadn't gotten this sweet money deal in the middle of COVID.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he's getting paid.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor the other day, or like a story, but it was a CMLL guy, not one of the top guys, but he said in CMLL you didn't even make enough to approach the beginning of the poverty line, like the minimum for the poverty requirements. And so compared to CMLL, he is getting paid.
Yeah.
And good for him. And not having to work hard to do it. He's keeping his body in top shape.
Yeah, and again, in the pandemic, you don't really, yes, you can make a lot of money on the indies, but it's that 2020 and early 2021 was not the time to go out and hustle on the indies.
Yeah.
For most people. So he has pretty famously and maybe infamously been okay with whatever WWE does. They're like, they want him to chase after the 24/7 championship. He'll chase after the 24/7 championship. They want him to, do, crazy, stupid gimmicks with Lucha House Party back during the days where everybody rolled their eyes to see Lucha House Party. It's like, whatever, I'm getting paid, and just, so, but yeah, I thought his trajectory could have been great. And this is a match where he's in there with, a guy that is a verifiable, like, to use the term, Hall of Famer. Negro Casas is he's a legend. He's well known. He's usually worked Rudo, but he's still respected by the fans. Like, they love to hate him, but his ability is respected. He's the very technical type of Rudo, and and seeing these two go at it is just great. They work really well together. You can see the evolution of the Grand Metalik that we got later, which I really felt like hit his height right before the Cruiserweight Classic that we got him in. And, I mean, I'm always going to refer people, I did this off air before, but I'll always refer people to his Cruiserweight Classic matches. Like, he made it all the way to the finals on that, and every one of those matches had me riveted. Like, I was just excited. So, but yeah, so I'm talking more about everything else on that. It's a good match. Miranda, do you have any observations on the actual match, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really liked, I haven't seen a lot of Negro Casas matches. I really liked the kind of the flamboyance, of his personality in this, and, just the way that, especially after that second fall with the roll up, in which it went to Máscara Dorada, Negro Casas was just kind of beside himself. But I think that was such a good contrast to the pure just, technicality of Máscara Dorada. And there was this one moment where, I could notice the excellent precision in his work when Máscara Dorada dove through the middle of the ropes. It was one of the post corners to the outside, and it looked like it was almost like you were threading a needle. Like, just the precision to just go through that exact spot, not too far to the left because he would have hurt himself on the ring post, and not too far to the right because then he would have missed the target outside. And I mean, that's something really special to have that level of precision. Yeah. That to me was like the wow moment, even though it was just more of a straight dive outward and not necessarily a super flippy move. If you see that angle, like that looks like a very tough angle to work through.
To do something so simple, so perfectly.
Yes.
Is just as much of an accomplishment as seeing Commander do 1,000,001 flips off of,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it was exactly from that corner too that surprised me. Like, out of all the places to do it, because again, if he would have just gotten a little bit too far to the left, he would have somehow hit that ring post, or part of him could have. Mm-hmm. And if he ended up going any further, he may have missed the target of Negro Casas. So, I do feel like the end of the match was kind of abrupt with that power bomb.
Yes.
Like I had to go back and be like, wait, what happened? I thought I had missed something. So the match kind of ended a little abruptly for me, which is the only kind of, negative or just more like, thing about it. But overall, I thought that, I mean, it is a very classic 3 falls match. It didn't go on too long where you lost interest. I think it was timed very well, and it's very apparent. You know what you're watching. You know who the technical is. You know who the Rudo is. All these things. You don't need to listen to the language to understand that. And I think that's a beautiful thing when something is done so well. It's universal.
And not listening to the language, I'm just going to stress this. A lot of these Arena Mexico matches, sometimes just for your sanity, it's okay to turn the volume off because there's a lot going on in Arena Mexico.
Oh my gosh. And those Vizsla horns.
Yes.
The air horns too, and just, and then random insults being thrown, and there's a lot going on. I tried to show some friends of mine a couple of CMLL matches, and they were like, can we turn the volume off, because they just couldn't handle all the noise that's in the background. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Very true. Well, that is this week in Lucha Libre history. Don't forget to check out this day in Lucha Libre history at luchacentral.com. But there is so much more available at luchacentral.com. Brendan, can you tell our wonderful listeners what else they can find?
All right, let's do this. If you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's really time to do it. Luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events will be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards. seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of that, it's free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Up next this week in WWE with Dusty.
Yeah, it's always kind of a disappointing week at WWE, but here we are. First up, we had main event. Ricochet defeated Cedric Alexander. And another week of main event, just giving us a great match we'd never get to see on Raw. Like, they just don't have the time for this type of wrestling on Raw for some reason. And, I'm glad main event has it. But anyways, Cedric Alexander, he was looking fabulous. He's got some new Black Panther inspired gear, kind of like the Funko Mecha Black Panther. Very cool. Ricochet was cooler than ever. The crowd loved it. He showed off his very smooth dance moves. The crowd literally chanted his name while he danced before they got started. It was awesome. They traded moves back and forth very evenly. Ricochet got the pin with the recoil in 9 minutes and 13 seconds, including commercials. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, but main event has become the place to see WWE wrestlers actually wrestling. Like, if you want to see actual wrestling, check out main event. The first match, like, even though it doesn't sound good, Dana Brooke versus Doudrop, like, it was really good. And Dana Brooke, I don't know that she's ever looked this great in a match. Like, they really let them kind of do their own thing and shine on main event. It's like a secret club. But main event is surprisingly great lately if you prefer wrestling to storylines. There's not much story that happens with the matches. It's just a match, but it's always at least a pretty good match, at least watchably decent. Even when they don't sound great on paper, like Dana Brooke versus Doudrop, I didn't think sounded terribly exciting, but I got into it. It was a fun match.
That wouldn't have gotten me to tune in, yeah.
Yeah, so I was surprised they had that, but like, it was pretty good. I mean, surprisingly good, compared to what you see on paper. So if you're sleeping on main event, like, you really need to wake up and watch it. Lots of good wrestling on main event, in my opinion. And every week for the last several weeks, there's been a luchador in one match or another. Of course, Ricochet was Prince Puma on Lucha Underground, and it's not a chance very often to see him look really good in WWE, but he looked really good on main event. So
that's a whole rant for me right there.
Yes.
I feel you. And another thing that could be a whole rant from me, SmackDown, we had Sami Zayn defeating Dominic again. They're doing this thing where Dominic wants Ray to leave him alone and kind of let him be his own man and do his own thing. But Ray, trying to help, then causes Dominic to be distracted. Sami wins. I am not a fan. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of them splitting up Ray and Dominic anyway. Like, Dominic does need some singles experience. Ray should, they both deserve better than a tag team in the SmackDown division right now. But I don't like the idea that they split them up to get him his matches. I enjoy his singles matches.
But that's how you do tag teams in the WWE. Tag teams don't just naturally end in the WWE.
Yeah.
There's always a barbershop window.
Always. And you always have to feud when you split, and I can tell that's where they're going. Dominic needs experience in singles matches, and having him split from Ray in a feud between them, I just feel it's too soon. I think they feel like it's probably the best matches they can get from Dominic is with his dad, and I'm certain that that's probably true, but when has WWE ever cared about work rate? And, I mean, for real, like, he just isn't developed enough to stand on his own without Ray there as his dad. Like, Dominic's cool, but we've mentioned this before. He doesn't have much of a character. He doesn't have much going on aside from being Rey Mysterio's son, and it would have been nice if they'd kind of established some of that before they split him up, because now his thing's going to be, oh yeah, he was Rey Mysterio's son. And it's just strange, and I don't think the time is right for a match between Dominic and Ray, but whatever, I guess. And I said I'd try to be more positive on Raw, so this is my positive version. Karrion Kross defeated John Morrison after getting sprayed with the dripstick. These are both Lucha Underground guys. They had both been on. Karrion worked a lot of dark matches on the early Lucha Underground years too. Johnny Mundo would not have been the three-way AAA Cruiserweight champion and AAA Mega Campeon, in addition to his Latin American championship, if it had not been for Killer Cross getting involved in that triple threat at Rey de Reyes 2017. And how does Johnny Mundo repay him? By spraying him with the dripstick on Monday Night Raw.
That was then, this now, my friend.
Yes. Well, Karrion, he would not let these shenanigans stand. He let him know that too. He grabbed him, he backdropped him over the post, then he destroyed him with a cross jacket before picking up the win in just under 2 minutes. It was pretty good, but it was also silly, and the dripstick thing was kind of silly, but they worked so well together. They obviously know each other, and John Morrison really sold his ass off for Karrion Kross, and it looked great. I'm hoping that the first week of Karrion's debut was an aberration. I still miss Scarlett, but I'll take dominant Karrion Kross. It's better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah.
But for more WWE news, check out luchacentral.com. They'll have all the news and updates and reviews. And, generally they're a little more positive than I am, but I try to keep it real with y'all. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Raw and SmackDown are just not good right now. And especially in comparison to AEW, it feels like work watching WWE. And so, yeah, I don't know. I hope they can pull out of this, but at any rate, watch Main Event. It's always good. And check out luchacentral.com for news and updates and even more.
Up next, Brendan has some brief CMLL news.
Well, yeah, so, we teased it at the top of the show. There was, an earthquake, and it happened in the middle of a 6-man tag match featuring Hechicero, Luciferno, Mephisto against Blue Panther, Dark Panther, Blue Panther Jr. I do need to be careful on that. Dark Panther and Stuka Jr. The match had just started, and the show was stopped. They restarted eventually, and then, the Rudos managed to win. So probably not the best, for the fans to come back to, hey, we just had this terrible earthquake. Good thing we're going to have some nice wrestling to watch. Oh, the bad guys are cheating and they won. Gosh darn it. But yeah, that was the match that got that. So it will now be kind of an infamous match, in my opinion. I'm going to have that on easy reference, so I can be like, here's the match that happened during the earthquake.
That's like the ultimate Rudo move. Avoid earthquake happening by cheating to win. Like, I kind of admire that in a way.
Yeah, it was, so according to Lucha Blog, it was about a 5-minute pause before they resumed. And then, several wrestlers, Volador, Valiente, thanked fans for sticking around through all of that, cause, people, like I said before, people in Mexico are used to this, so a lot of the time they're gonna have to go home and check on their pets or make sure the kids are okay or whatever else is, going on that's not wrestling. So, they were grateful to have that. There was one more match that happened after that. It was Star Jr., Valiente, and Volador Jr. against, Cavernario, Gamilio, Diablo 1 and 2. The Technicos did win that one. So the fans got, to go home on a Technico win, which featured, Volador Jr. and Valiente. So I'm sure they were all very happy. So that was our basic CMLL news. I do want to remind people the anniversary show is coming up on 9/24. This is not, to my knowledge, going to be an iPay-per-view, so it should be easier to watch than last year's anniversary show. Voting is open for matches. The tag title, like I mentioned last week, the top 2 vote getters are gonna go in for the tag titles. So definitely, if you're going to do that, go ahead. We will have, as results are going, they haven't officially said when voting is going to end, so I have no idea how to work on this hype train for you guys, but I will once we have our results, I will let you know what the card is going to look like, because the anniversary show is always one of CMLL's big shows.
Thank you, Brendan. And for our last two news items of this week's episode, we have Impact Wrestling to kick us off. This week was the Laredo Kid match that we had discussed a few weeks earlier on Before the Impact BTI. This match was against John Schuyler. And some interesting tidbits from this match. He did come out with the AAA Cruiserweight Championship, and it was acknowledged as such. Another thing, and this was just me, man, it was really good to hear Matt Striker call Lucha again.
Yes.
Where's Vampiro?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I
maybe
don't know
not-
that I need Vampiro, but
Exactly.
I like Matt Striker.
I think D'Lo Brown was just enough with that. But man, as soon as he started talking about Laredo Kid's history and style, just flashback to Lucha Underground and how well he knows how to call different styles. It's insane. It's just crazy.
Yeah, he's the extreme educator for a reason, and it's
Yes.
not just it wasn't just that he was a school teacher that led into an unfortunate gimmick. It was he's a very educated fan, and he
So good.
yeah.
Yeah, it just definitely had a little tingle. I was like, man, Matt Striker calling Lucha Libre. So good. But, this match itself was very much a luchador versus, American style wrestler. The match itself was good, nothing super outstanding, which I think when you have Laredo Kid in the ring, you always have those high expectations, but it also depends on who's on the other side of that ring. But for what it's worth, the crowd was very much into this match and got their support behind Laredo Kid. There was such a good acai moonsault by Laredo Kid outside to the ramp, and he won the match by doing what I would consider, and I think a lot of us would have, a Spanish fly. But again, according to Matt Striker, who is much more of the technician in this, would have labeled it more of a belly-to-belly moonsault off the top rope. So however you want to call it, Laredo Kid wins in this match. It is available on YouTube for free, and it is at the end of this Before the Impact, so I believe it's about the last 10 minutes. But it was a solid match. For those who've watched Laredo Kid matches, there's always a lot more, but for the purposes of this, especially as a precursor to a possible television match, I think was very solid, good, easy to follow. His competitor John Schuyler had some, they had some pretty decent chemistry, but it wasn't anything mind-blowing. But I hope this is more of a precursor to seeing AAA talent on Impact. You do have the Reina de Reinas champion, also the Knockouts champion on there. And again, for Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling has teased possibly having some more AAA stars, New Japan, AEW stars on the show. So, this would be a great way to bring that further into the fold for Glory. But if you're interested in watching this match, Laredo Kid versus John Schuyler, it is on YouTube for free. And last but not least, some MLW news, for some very interesting little tidbits, that came out this week. First off, the man known as Danny Limelight Rivera, now known as Rivera, has officially signed with MLW. So he is with MLW. A very interesting thing about this press release was that it was both in terminology, a little shoot, a little work. They mention how MLW matchmaker Cesar Duran reportedly worked with Conan in brokering the deal with 5150, which is, I believe now more of the team name that is being used. For Danny and Slice and, what was the other? And Julius, yeah.
Julius, yeah.
Yes. according to the press release, terms of the deal are under wraps, but reportedly all parties are very satisfied. So that's very much a hint to maybe what we'll see in the future again with Azteca Underground, with MLW. But Danny Limelight Rivera, or Rivera, we may call him, has found a home in MLW. And MLW also confirmed that he is going to be in action at Fightland on October 2nd in Philadelphia. So that is where he's already having a prime place in the MLW roster. Also this week we did get confirmation that the premiere of MLW Fusion Alpha has been announced for September 22nd. Fusion Alpha is a 4-week mini-series that's going to lead up to the new season of Fusion. And Alpha's premise, as far as the teaser alludes to, is knowing that MLW is under warfare, alliances, partnerships, drawing the line. So it seems like the theme with Alpha is maybe seeing the development of maybe new teams or factions or feuds or whatnot. At least that's what it kind of feels like. And again, too, we still don't know what the true nature of Azteca Underground is going to look like. So maybe that will help set the stage for Azteca Underground as we go into the new season of Fusion. And last but not least, some other big news coming out of MLW is that they have announced the first 5 participants for the 2021 Opera Cup. The Opera Cup is a 8-man single elimination tournament, and it's scheduled to include, they consider a who's who of the toughest fighters on the MLW roster. As far as the first 5 participants announced, we have the 2020 Opera Cup winner and, of course, former UFC fighter Filthy Tom Lawler. We also have the high-flying phenom TJP, one of the greatest technical wrestlers in wrestling right now, Davey Richards, internationally decorated champion Matt Cross, and former D1 football recruit Calvin Tankman. So those are the first 5 that have been announced. MLW will be announcing the final 3 entrants to the Opera Cup in the upcoming few weeks, along with a complete tournament bracket, and the finals are scheduled to take place on Saturday, November 6th at MLW Intimidation Games, which is going to be in Philadelphia. So for Lucha fans, being able to see names like TJP and Matt Cross in this Opera Cup is very interesting. And with 3 other names to be announced, I mean, they did recruit some heavy Lucha names for the draft that we saw at Battle Riot 3. And again, with Cesar Duran being matchmaker, it seems like he's going to have some input on who these final 3 will be. But it is setting up the stage for a very interesting Opera Cup.
LA Park. He's just going to ruin the whole vibe and use chairs in every match.
Well, I don't know if LA Park's going to be. Maybe Eho, or maybe LA Park Jr. I'd like to think.
I was trying to think of the most antithetical person to the Opera Cup vibe, and the LA Park just popped right into my head.
That is also true. Very much. You don't think of LA Park as when you think of the Opera Cup. But again, I mean, as Dusty mentioned earlier too, MLW is really moving forward with this Lucha presence. Their content is ramping back up at a really good time. They are doing live events monthly, and again, I mean, we talked about the landscape of wrestling now from this past weekend. If we get Azteca Underground in what we think it may be, that itself is going to revolutionize wrestling in a way that we haven't seen in years. Bringing back an entity or reformation of an entity that we haven't had in years that fans miss under the MLW umbrella. We've been kind of cool on that topic for a while, but MLW is ramping some things back up, and I hope it's something unique. I hope, MLW is going to show us something with televised pro wrestling that we haven't seen yet. And it could possibly involve Lucha Libre, which is crazy because not a lot of North American promotions look at Lucha Libre as a product, as a solution, as a way to entice viewers. But it seems like MLW is putting, their bets on Lucha Libre.
Yeah, I was at a loss of words on that. Yeah, MLW seems to be strongly gambling, and I shouldn't even say gambling because.
Yeah, it's not so much gambling. It kind of feels that way, but it's just they're putting their foot forward with Lucha Libre intentionally.
Yeah, it's gambling was a temptation because other American companies aren't doing it, but it's an established brand, it's an established style, and it's got its fan base that is going to, like us, is going to rapidly follow it. So, like, they're giving certain fans what they want, and I'm there for it. I'm that fan.
Mm-hmm.
You guys catering to me.
Yes. And we're going to be reporting more on MLW over the next few weeks. Of course, we'll be interested to see what MLW Fusion Alpha looks like. And then, of course, who the final 3 competitors are for the Opera Cup, as well as any new signees that may be coming up. It's good to see Danny Limelight find a home. We thought it was going to be with AEW. It wasn't, but he seems to have found a great landing place in MLW. So we will see what happens. But that is it for this week's edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Go ahead and follow Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at Lucha Central.com on Twitter. You gotta check out the YouTube page with hours upon hours of exclusive content, including interviews and matches that you're not going to find anywhere else. In the meantime, too, while you're at it, just scrolling through the internet, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yes, I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 3, 2, and 1. And T-shirt guy is all spelled out. And I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. And I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales. You can find me at the hashtag Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. No Twitter. That's what the other 2 guys are here for. And of course, Lucha Central's Twitter page. Just go ahead and follow them on that. If you were listening to this on your favorite podcast streaming platform like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all of that, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe and get notifications every time a new episode drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating and provide us with a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, things you'd like for us to cover, things we should stop covering, maybe things we should get some more in-depth on, or just any kind of opinions and feedback that you have for us. Let us know online or through our social medias. Well, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. We got you each and every week on the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, so make sure you come and join us next week. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back next week.